Welcome back to Roaming with Restless Women. Today I have Annette Mullin. Annette spent 24 years working as a police officer with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and still lives in Las Vegas, including 2 decades working violent crimes and navigating human behavior in some of the most intense situations, from homicide investigations to internal affairs and crisis negotiation. Annette built a career centered around understanding people under pressure. What they say, what they don't say, that's 9 times out of 10, that's more important. And how critical decisions get made in high stakes moments. She brings that experience to the private sector as a negotiation instructor and coach with the Black Swan Group, helping professionals improve communication, manage pressure, and make better decisions when it matters most is constantly on her mind. She coaches on mindset, emotional intelligence, and what law enforcement can teach the rest of the world about communication under stress. And this is such a timely topic for today. I just, with all of the ICE brouhaha that's out there, all of the concentration on the police and the pressure that they're under, and, de-escalation. I think I've heard that word more in the last year than I have in my entire life up until that point. So let's go ahead and start out by you telling me about why you decided to become a police officer and some of your top learnings.
Sure. First off, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's just a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here. I, as a little girl, was a big Nancy Drew fan. I used to watch Quincy on TV and wanted to be a coroner. All the things. It was pretty much media, whether it was reading books or watching TV, introduced me to the world of policing. I have no one in my family was a police officer,
Wow.
no one at all. And I'm the youngest of three girls, so not really something that was traditional in my family. But just my curiosity for investigation just really kind of took me through my high school and into my college career. And my father said, you can be a police officer as long as you get your education first. Because he was worried. He didn't know what it would be, a woman being in the field. He didn't know
Yeah.
anyone that had done it. So he's like, just get your education. And then once you're done, you can do whatever you want, no matter what it is. So I took his advice. I got a degree out in Pennsylvania at a university called Villanova University. And
Yeah.
then I went over to LA just to kind of, see something new after college. And while I was there, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department came to my college campus. I was in grad school for criminalistics, and they recruited. They said, hey, we're looking for people. And at the time, Los Angeles Police Department wasn't really hiring. They were in a hiring freeze. And my dean said, look, you will most likely have to, when you do get hired in LA, it'll most likely take you 2 hours to drive to work because you won't be able to live anywhere near. Just as it, the Las Vegas at the time, he said, was a growing police department. And he said, it's an exciting time. He's like, you'll probably be able to afford to buy a house there, where here you may not be able to. So he really encouraged me. So I finished schooling and was hired by LVMPD. And boy, what an amazing city to learn. I mean, I don't gamble, so I had to learn so many new things, but it is, a city that never sleeps. And it is not only the strip, it is just a community that was growing. All the suburbs of Las Vegas I got to learn about. And, it was just a fantastic police department. It's one of the largest in the United States, but it's very progressive, very forward thinking. And I just felt an honor that because it was a growing agency, I was able to kind of change focus or areas of expertise every, 3 to 4 years. So that's what happens with the growing police department is you get to try different things. And I, once again, go back to my Nancy Drew heart. I got to get involved in investigations. And as I promoted up, went further into, criminal investigations and violent crimes and was able to go to homicide and internal affairs and even became part of the crisis negotiation team, which is responding to people in crisis, responding to hostage situations, and just was able to do that for 10 years, led the team for two. And at the end of my career, I was brought to the Police Employee Assistance Program. We had a mass shooting in Las Vegas in 2017, which is still the largest, I'll knock on wood, let's just keep it there,
Yeah, I
in the
remember
United
that
in the
well.
United
Yeah.
States, and is the aftermath of that on our community, on our police officers, on our police families was devastating. So I was brought in to help find resources for not only just the hard days of being, anyone, you have divorce, you have financial issues, cops have it too, but also dealing with the devastating pressure of being under the spotlight of, people always looking at what you're doing. Some of the anti-police stuff at the time was wearing on the hearts of our officers. We had an increase in police suicide. So my last 4 years, I spent looking for resources and trying to get people that don't know how to ask for help, let them know it was okay to ask for help. And so that's how I retired as a director of police employee assistance program, really learning a lot about, wow, there's so much more work we can do to help people help themselves. So that was my policing career.
Wow. Wow. And so, and I know that in policing, you have about a 30-year career at the most, right?
Sure.
Because you do have to retire after a certain amount of time. And so, out of all of that time that you were there, give me one story about a weird, strange situation that you encountered. I like to hear those kinds of things from the medical field and also from law enforcement. So tell me about a weird one.
There's just so many. It'd be hard to just pick one. I think that, I have to go back to, I'll never forget my parents were in town, and my parents are from the East Coast. The big thing my father did ask, if you're going to do it, don't do it anywhere near home because we're going to open up the newspaper and we're going to think you were involved. We're going to be worried about you all the time. So I said, fair enough, understood, made sense. So I was in homicide at the time, and my parents had come in for Christmas. And homicide is you don't know when those calls are going to come in. Right? Just it's random, right? The phone just rings and you got to go. So my parents are in town, and of course, I get a phone call that I have to head out to a homicide. And so I'm like, okay, here we go. So I'm going downstairs to tell my parents, okay, here's the plans for Christmas Eve. You're going to go to my mother-in-law's. This is what's going to happen. And my mom's hugging me, and she's like, where's your vest? I go, excuse me? She's like, where's your body armor? And I said, Mom, I don't wear body armor anymore. I'm a police sergeant, and I'm respond. The crime's already happened, and I'm going to respond. She goes, no, no, you're not leaving this house without wearing a vest. Not while I'm here. I'm like, okay, Mom. So I put on my body armor vest over my clothes, and sure enough, I show up at the briefing, and everyone is like, Sarge, what's going on? I go, my mother's in town. And I know that the news are going to capture a picture of me standing out here. And if I'm not wearing a vest, I'm going to hear about it the whole rest of the trip. So sure enough, there I am, my big bright vest, and everyone else is just shaking their head like, Sarge, you do know you're an adult. I go, not worth it. It's Christmas. It's Christmas. We're
Right,
going to keep the
right.
peace of Christmas. And I just remember my squad was so good with me. But sure enough, when I came back, because cops are jokers, when I came back to the office the next day, everyone's vest was in my office just in case I needed more.
Ah,
Well, my parents were in there. My whole squad comes in. They're all wearing the vest in unity. I'm like, that's right. We wear our vests when my parents are in town. So
oh, that's
one of my favorite fun
precious.
stories. So yeah.
Oh, that is so much fun. I'm telling you, mothers never quit mothering. That's a
No, they
great
don't.
example. That is a great example. I love that. I love that. So now you've moved into teaching negotiation tactics, and I'm assuming that de-escalation is part of that. Help me understand what you do now
Sure,
and
absolutely.
how and who you do it for.
Sure, absolutely. So it's an honor right now. I work for a company called the Black Swan Group. The Black Swan Group was created by a visionary by the name of Chris Voss. He was the lead FBI hostage negotiator and was able to travel the world solving, very difficult hostage
Mm.
situations and helping people. In 2016, he wrote a best-selling book called Never Split the Difference. And it is taking the things that he learned as a hostage negotiator, as a leader of a team, and taking those negotiation skills and translating them into the business world. Because when it comes down to it, it's all about tactical empathy, what he entitled tactical empathy. And what that is taking the time, no matter whether it is a hostage situation, the most important business deal you have to deal with, $1 million deal, or dealing with your kids. First and foremost, if we can look first to seek to understand the perspective of the other person and verbalize what we've heard, that allows us to move forward in negotiations so much faster. So it's first about the other side, making it all about them. And so he wrote this best-selling book, and now he has a team of us that we teach, throughout the world, whether it is, someone in private practice, one person show, whether it is a teacher, whether it is a CEO, whether it's a whole team of people. That's who we teach about how to get further negotiations by using tactical empathy, cognitive empathy, to understand who you're working with, and therefore crafting your approach based on what they need and what they understand to need. And your understanding of them makes things go so much faster. And it's rare in a world where negotiations are usually about manipulation. This is about trust-based influence.
Yeah, I love that. And so, what is one of the things I know that as a consultant, my very first thing going in the door at a new company for a new project, my number one goal is to start building rapport. My number one goal is to build a relationship. And what that means to me is I have to have some of what you're calling tactical empathy. I need to understand how they're feeling about us coming in, how they're feeling about this big project. I do change management consulting. So something is going to change, big is
Sure.
going to change. I need to understand how they're feeling about it. And this is the person who either was responsible for the decision to make the change or was told that they needed to make it happen,
Sure.
right? And whether they agree with it or not. Um, so, making sure that I understand where they're coming from before we even talk about the tactics or the strategy or anything like that. We have to connect on a human to human level. What are some of the things you tell your students about building that rapport or creating that tactical empathy quickly?
Sure. Well, it really starts with two things. First and foremost, it's listening. Listening is one of the most underutilized tools, that we have. But it's the easiest to really foster, communication. And it's focusing on that first, is that I'm going to be a great listener. I'm not going to listen just long enough to understand just a little bit what's going on. I'm not going to listen long enough to all of a sudden, oh, I can solve that problem. No, it's about listening for what is going on with the other side. What's the motivation behind the behavior? What are the emotions? What is actually happening first? What is their worldview? So focusing less on talking and more on listening, is what I start with. And secondly, it's about curiosity. As a hostage negotiator, if I wasn't curious, I mean, I could go into someone that's in crisis and tell them, what a dumb thing they did today, or, what are you thinking? I could go in with assumptions and judgment. That gets me nowhere. Instead,
Absolutely.
when we're curious about why did that even make sense to you? How did we get here today? When we start
Mhm.
there, then that allows the other side to talk about what's happening. And that's how we got those that were in crisis to come out, because we were literally selling jail time. We're not selling a week vacation. You're going to jail when you come out of the situation. To be able to sell that to someone in crisis, because we took the time to listen and
Yeah.
verbalize what they were going through and let them know this is how we were going to peacefully end it. You got buy-in, you got collaboration. So two big things I start with is listening at the highest level, listening not for what I want, not for just long enough that, I get the gist, instead of listening to know their worldview, their perspective, their emotions. And second, be curious. I mean, we know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. So it's always realizing when you go into communication, there are two sides. And it's if two people are standing across the street from each other, I'm going to walk across the street and look at it from your perspective first. Or if not, if I don't do that, then I only see your face. I'm not seeing what you're seeing. And if I
Right.
can verbalize to you what I think I'm understanding, you're seeing the world from your perspective. If I can do that, then that bonds us together. It's real rapport versus using common ground. It's actually about making it about the other side. first,
Yeah.
really does help you tailor your approach and your communication to what someone needs, because everyone has an innate desire to be heard and to be understood. If we start there first, then we can move towards collaboration or negotiation or agreement so much faster.
Well, and you can't belong. You can't be part of a community if you don't feel that you have been heard or seen or understood.
Mhm.
If you're feeling out there 100% all alone, what you build in your head, whether it is pure fantasy or not, is your reality.
Yeah.
And I agree, you have to be able to go and look at the situation from their perspective and understand what is the threat to
Right.
them.
Right.
Because it's usually, and this is change management 101, I look at a group of people, and even before we get into the why and the how and the what of a particular change, it's always that fear of the unknown.
Sure.
And the fear actually equals, for some people, it equals, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my job. For some people,
Right.
it equals, I'm not gonna be able to perform as well. For some people, it equals, they're not listening to me. This is a bad idea. Regardless, there is a fear, there's a motivation there that you have to get to even before you introduce a new idea.
Absolutely. And we say the fear of loss is the single biggest driver of human behavior there is.
Absolutely. And it could be loss of anything. It could be loss of, this has been my cubicle for 20 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It goes to identity. I mean, and it goes to such things as we can make an assumption of what we think it is. But if we
Yeah.
don't understand what the identity issue that is, what that loss means,
Right.
we can't place value on someone else's loss. They place the value, and that's what needs to be understood. And it doesn't, the interesting thing, especially as a leader, it doesn't excuse accountability. It doesn't excuse,
Mm-mm.
correction. But instead, if we truly understand, then we can, if it is, it could be so much as you've changed this where I used to use an iPhone, now I have to use an Android. I'm worried that I won't be any good at this. I'm
Oh my
worried that I was an
gosh.
expert, right? And so when we can truly take what for some would be minimal or, an easy thing to overcome, for others it's not, because it goes to identity, it goes to fears that really need, if we can pull those strings, and I love that you use that, pull those strings and get curious about what it means to them, then we
Hmm.
can actually work on helping them figure out those issues versus problem solving for something that doesn't need to be problem solved for, and turning off someone, by telling them, well, this is how you should handle it. It just can be so off-putting. And so much of what we do with Black Swan is we reduce ourselves as a threat, because in any interaction we stand
Yes.
to lose something. So we're not about manipulation. We're about trust-based influence. So whether it's using our tone to let people know, hey, I'm not trying to scramble your brain. I'm just trying to listen and understand. Whether it's just explaining, taking the time to listen and learn first versus something else, or putting other people's needs first, it's reducing ourselves as a threat. So at least someone then can try to receive or be receptive to a situation is truly important.
Have you ever and this is, I call it letting people talk their own selves down. So for instance, allowing someone to just talk until they talk themselves in a big circle all the way back around to recognizing either, their own fear or their own wrongdoing or taking responsibility for where they are now, that sort of thing. Have you ever experienced that sort of a situation all the
Absolutely. I mean,
time?
and and we almost, it's like letting them have your way, is that you want this to be resolved for them and allowing them the
Yes.
opportunity, whether it's venting, whether it's processing, it through.
Yes.
When emotions are high, right? Logical thinking is low. Imagine like a seesaw, right? And if we can allow them to kind of get it out, whether it's venting, whether it's processing it, all of a sudden those emotions get reduced. logical thinking goes up and they have the solution themselves. It's kind of, I look at it like parenting. I know that you're a parent yourself. Is I can tell
Hmm.
my kids all day long how to solve something. Doesn't mean they're going to do it. It's mom, right? I'm
Right.
telling it. But if they can problem solve it themselves, if they can vent it out, if I allow them the opportunity, whether it's just being curious, whether it's labeling what I'm hearing so they can continue to think it through, if they come up with the solution themselves, they're going to do it because it's their idea. And that it's so
Hmm.
it's allowing, others to have your way. By allowing that, simply talk it out, get it out, and I'm here to listen. And oftentimes, because I am analytical, so I do like to problem solve, if someone comes to me, I will say, okay, what do you need from me? Do you need to vent? Do you need me to come up and beat somebody up? Do you need me to problem solve?
Yeah.
What are you looking for? Because I'm here to listen. If you know, let me know, and I will honor that with you. So it's just realizing is that people need different things as they're going through the hard stuff, and
Yeah.
trying to figure out what that is quickly will allow, the other person to move towards that solution.
So, do you have an approach for any kind of situation like using, and I'm going to use the words tough love, like just being very blunt, very transparent, very out there in truth with someone about what you're seeing that they're denying?
Well, it's interesting is I wish I had active listening skills as a young cop, right? Because
Yeah.
you are seeing people in situations, you're having to make quick judgment calls, when often that's not what they need. They just need someone to listen. They just need someone to take the time. And once you've heard their story, then you can provide resources. So I try not to do tough love first. Instead, my goal first is to be curious.
Hmm.
And as I'm being curious, is I'm labeling myself because I can get triggered. I'm like, I want to
Oh,
talk, I want to do, and really like, all right, Annette, you're starting to get judgmental, or you're starting to get angry. Is just taking a pause, because there's a time and a place for the tough love, but I try to time it where, let me see what's going on first. Let me make sure I truly understand instead of judging in. Um, and that is taking the time first to allow the other person the opportunity to solve it themselves, letting them to do the tough love themselves. But then when it's time, when I do have to say put the hammer down or give bad news, is still being, cognitively empathetic about it. Is I want to
yeah.
put this out in a way that it can be received so people can respond, not react, because I don't want to trigger them as well.
Right. When I have found the need to do that is when they can't somehow come out of their own spiral.
Sure.
They're continuing to feed that whatever it is that's got them
Mm-hmm.
stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And many times you can still ask a question. You don't have to, throw something in their face, but
Sure.
you can definitely ask a question that will, almost like in the old movies where you slap somebody when they're hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I liken it to. You have to get their attention. You have to ask a question that is not expected
Mm-hmm.
to break that cycle that's going on in their heads and get them out of it long enough to be able to put their logical brain back in gear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, when you can get someone to express their vision for how they expect, whether it's repeated counterproductive behavior, whether it is, someone is just not, like you said, you have to slap it down. It's like, what is your vision for how you expect this to end? Given A, B, C, and D, what is your vision for how this is going to continue forward? Is what do you think is going to
Right.
happen if you continue this? And allow them to like, all right, this doesn't make sense, or you're right, is, I've got stinking thinking going on, and I'm going in loops, trying to help them,
Yeah.
whether it's what or how, is where do you visualize this coming next? How do you see this progressing? Because what's happening now, isn't it? It's not working.
Right. Right. That's just a nice way to say, how's that working for you?
Absolutely.
I love that, but that's exactly what it is, right? So what have you got coming up next for you? You working on a book, you're doing,
No, no. So
you're
with
growing your business.
Black Swan, what we do is we have It's an incredible company that we do one-on-one coaching, we do group coaching, but we also have something called Deal Maker Days, and they are spread out
Okay.
through the United States. We actually have one coming in Orlando in September where I'll be, where
Ooh,
you
let me
can
know where
go.
that is.
It's you can go onto the Black Swan Group webpage and it'll show you where there are. There's some in Vegas coming up in both October and November, where we work with individuals who just want to increase their negotiation game. They want to learn how to make better deals. They want to get to deals quicker, and they want to better understand their counterpart. That's what we have with those. Also with Black Swan, we have something called boot camps, where people that want to practice the skills, we give them scenarios once a month, and they come up and we role play. They get to role play with one of the coaches, and we get to
Nice.
help them get better in using the skills, the Black Swan skills. So that's what's going on. We're gonna continue coaching, both team and group coaching, and we have something new called the Accelerator program, where it's one-on-one, not situation specific coaching, but helping people get the basic Black Swan skills down in a 12-week program. So that's what we are doing. That's what's on
Awesome.
my agenda. And, that's just for the next 6 months. That's kind of what we'll be doing.
Wow, that's a lot in 6 months, I have to
Yeah.
say. I'm very impressed. Well, how can people get a hold of you? You mentioned the website. Just give it to us out
So
loud, and
it's
I'll put it in the show notes.
sure. It's Black Swan Group is our webpage. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can reach me at Annette at blackswanltd.com as a way to email me or find me on LinkedIn.
Ooh, that sounds great. All right, well, we'll definitely do that. So we're coming to the end of our formal time. Um, I have three questions that I ask at the end of every episode, Annette. So if you're ready, we'll get started. If
I'm
you can
excited. I'm
close
curious.
close your eyes
Okay.
and tell me what you see in your mind's eye when I say wise woman.
Oh, when I see wise woman, I see a tribe of women. I don't see just one, I see community.
Mm,
I just think that we're just in such a unique time where women are truly supporting other women because we need each other. And so that's what
mhm.
I see is I see a group of women surround each other, arms around each other, just lifting each other up.
Oh, that's beautiful. You can open your eyes now. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're not the first one to say that. And I'm
Oh,
glad to
good.
know that because I think it's true that there's something about women in community that we don't necessarily get enough of, but it's coming back. I think it's getting more and more and more necessary, needed, and appreciated, particularly since COVID, I think, is when I've noticed the biggest shift. But I benefit greatly from some of the women groups that I interact with a lot. Okay, so my second question is, where do you like to roam?
Hmm. I like to roam in a couple places. I like to roam with my children. I like to just kind of explore where they're going.
Mm,
I love this adult age where you just get to see the world through their eyes, their experiences, and that's why I get to roam in their joy in life, their accomplishments, their hurts. And I like to roam in literature. I just like to be exposed to new ideas. I love when it says you have to read this book. Okay. I love and
oh
why
yeah.
why I should read it. So that's kind of where I like to roam. But lastly, I like to roam in my faith. I am just blessed that in the good times and the bad times, there's been a constant, and I always know he's there. So I'm a
Hmm.
big believer that God has been placed there to help me, and I'm blessed that wherever I go, he's with me.
Absolutely. And there's nothing like having that anchor,
Yeah.
really and truly. And then the final question is what makes you restless, but in a good way?
It's a great question. Um, I think there's just so much more to learn and see and get exposed to. I mean, I get restless because I want to meet people. I love hearing their stories. I like hearing the world through their eyes, and so it's good to know it's out there. And there's so much more to do. So yeah, it's where I get restless is getting the joy of knowing that there's more people to meet, more things to learn.
Absolutely. I get restless too. With just having so much that I want to do and experience. I have, and by the way, I have a master's in English literature, so I'm all about the roaming in the literature.
I love it.
My
You knew
great
I liked
escape.
you.
I constantly read. I'm constantly reading something. So anyway, thank you so much, Annette. This has been great, a great pleasure. And thank you for letting people know what Black Swan is all about, what you're all about. And thank you for injecting into our humanity a little bit more empathy. We really can need that as we move forward during these difficult times.
Well, thank you so much. It's just wonderful to be part of a show. There's just so much grace you're giving others and uplifting others. So thank you for what you do. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you. Julie Noonan here. Thank you so much for listening to Roaming with Restless Women. If you're a successful senior woman leader who would like to be on this program, please visit podcast.intuitivewisdomcoach.com. If you enjoyed this interview, please share this episode on social media and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Your thumbs ups and reviews go a long way.